Welcome back to FHN. We are here in the bait lab, brought to you by Max Lure. All right, we are going to cover one of my favorite topics, and that's rigging gear here in the bait lab, and we're going to talk swim baits, okay? And you know, we were kind of joking before the break. We talked a little walleye, but to tell you the truth, this set of gear right here, you can apply it to halibut, to ling cod, to sea bass, and tuna, you name it, right? So this is a lot of versatile gear. And I want to walk you through some of the products that we're using out on the water for ling cod and sea bass, because you know what? We had our ling cod opener here this last Tuesday, and at one point or another, we are going to make it out into the ocean, and there are plenty of hungry ling cod and sea bass out there. So I got a variety of products out here, and you're going to see a lot of Big Hammer swim baits, okay? Now, if Big Hammer had an initial public offering, I would buy as many shares as I could, but you're basically looking at deep purple. You know, this is a 6.5 inch size, sexy smelt. You've got bait fish, Pacific chovy, and a couple different sizes. This is like your 5 inch size and your 4 inch size. And it all depends on, you know, how deep you're fishing. And it really depends on what you're fishing for and what those fish are eating, okay? So you're gonna see, you know, if we're fishing, you know, shallower water, maybe, you know, 70 feet, 60 feet or less, and you really don't have that much current, it's gonna be all about, you know, a 5 inch Big Hammer swim bait. If, you know, if you're targeting maybe only sea bass, or you're in a really shallow area, you can drop down to a 4 inch, and you're gonna use about a, you know, a 2 ounce lead head for that, you know, and, it's hard for me to get through this. I'm going to be honest with you without talking about tuna. I apologize, but for tuna, you know, it's really critical how you rig these, and you're also going to use about a 2.5 ounce to 3.5 ounce head for trolling as well. So keep that in mind. And we're going to cover this again when we get closer to tuna season. But one of the things that's really important is how you rig these, okay? And you know, part of the devil is in the details, and you got to be ingrained in the details. And so when you look at a jig like this, and maybe it's better if we show it right here, I want to line up the top of this swim bait body, okay, this scampy tail body, with the top of my lead head. I want to try to get maximum hook exposure from this swim bait, okay? That's really important. I don't want the bait scrunched up on the hook to make it look unnatural, and I don't want it bent way down here and have it barely threaded onto the hook. And so the way to do this is if you take your swim bait and you line the hook up, okay? So I'm putting the hook there. You can see where kind of it comes out on the swim bait right around this segmented area right there. Okay, and here's what it looks like kind of from the back. You can see where that hook should pop out of that swim bait, okay? And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take a mental note of where that is, you know, with your finger, maybe your thumbnail, and you're gonna take the lead head and you're gonna put just a light score, okay, on the top of that swim bait, just enough so that you can see it and you know where it needs to pop out. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna rig this, okay? And so when you rig this, you want it to be perfectly centered so that, again, when you line it up, it's even with the top of the jig head. And you want it perfectly centered as well. So you're going to start it right in the center, and you're going to start pushing down, okay? And the key is when you put finger pressure on the swim bait, you want to keep your fingers in the same location during the whole time. You don't want to start pushing from down here, pulling from up here. You basically want to push it from the same spot and try to keep the jig head in the same location every time, okay? And we're just going to push this down, okay? When you get to the point where you put a little score mark in the top of that swim bait, you're going to pop the hook out. Okay, so we're going to work it down, and then we're going to pop it out. I've been doing my workouts so I can get this swim bait rigged to this head, and there you go. There you have it, okay? You've got a swim bait that lines up with the jig head from the top side. You've got great hook exposure, and it's perfectly centered within the middle of that bait. Okay, now we're not done yet, right? You've got a couple more steps to make this the perfect rig. Now, a lot of guys will get to this step, this part here, and they'll stop. They'll say, I'm done, I'm gonna fish this. And there's nothing per se that's wrong with that. But when you're getting multiple bites, okay, throughout, whether it's tuna or it's ling cod, sea bass, it doesn't really matter. What ends up happening is this swim bait falls off the hook. It falls off of the head of the jig. And when that happens, it's gonna cover up your hook. So you're gonna feel that strike, but then nothing's gonna stick. And when you bring in that bait, this this bait is going to be around the end of the hook or slid down. Okay. And it also doesn't look natural when it's not rigged properly. So then what we're going to do is we're going to take some super glue. Now this super glue here is Instaflex CA+. Okay. It's a quick setting super glue, works really good. All you're going to do is you're going to pull back this swim bait just a little bit, and you're going to apply a couple dabs underneath that jig head. Okay, just a couple. And then you're going to push the swim bait back into the head. And then what I usually do is I'll just take it and I'll hang it on a rack and let it dry, and you're good to go. Okay. And what that's going to do is with this super strong super glue right here is that's going to prevent this bait from falling down the swim bait, and you're going to catch fish after fish after fish after fish, and you're going to get tired. Okay. Hopefully that's how this is going to work. Now, one of the other things that I want to show you is a combo rig. Okay. You can fish 2 rigs. And so right now what I have here is a 4-inch swim bait, put on a 2.5 ounce jig head, and about, I would say 30 inches up the line, 2.5, 3 feet, you've got this shrimp tail. Okay. This is your typical inshore Nia Bay sea bass and Ling Cod rig, hands down. You know, we pull doubles all the time on this rig, both Ling Cod and sea bass. If you get a sea bass on, by the way, and you start to feel that weight and it gets heavier and heavier and heavier, do not set the hook. Okay. That's a Ling Cod. Reel slow and get ready with the net or the gaff. Okay. Be ready for that. Kind of pay attention to that. But this is a great way to have 2 presentations and all the loops. So the loop on the top is just a standard dropper loop. Okay. That's all that is, just a dropper loop. You want to give yourself, kind of start with a big loop, because the bigger loop is going to give you more to thread your shrimp fly through. Now on the bottom, I'm using a San Diego knot, tried and true. It's a 94% knot, awesome knot. So that's it for the knots, but that's how you put a rig together just like that. Okay. Now you will find times when you rig a swim bait and you blow out the side of the swim bait, right? Maybe you have a jig like this where you've got a big barb on the bottom, kind of a big bulbous round bulkhead on the middle of the jig head, and you put that perfect swim bait on, and then all of a sudden it splits down the side. Okay. Well, what we're going to do here is we're not going to, unless you just have a lot of money laying around, which I don't, you're going to bring out the swim bait and you're going to put stretchy thread on it. Okay. To close that split in the swim bait. And that right there, and it's not going to do anything, to your eye, it looks like, oh my God, that's kind of ugly. But honestly, it's going to save your swim bait. And then you're going to take your super glue and you're going to put super glue over that to help serve it. Now, while serving, before I put the super glue on, it's really important. You're going to do 3 half hitches, and that's going to lock this in place. Okay. And that's really all there is to it. Okay. Don't you guys go very far. Don't you leave me. We're going to be right back. We got Kylie Brem, who's going to join us on the phone, and we're going to talk Puget Sound Ling Cod and Wolf Eel. Stay tuned.